Catherine Duncan is an integrative spiritual consultant and first-time author. Her new book, Everyday Awakening, was released last year. After two near-death experiences, Catherine left a lucrative corporate job with Time magazine to study theology and to become a chaplain at a level 1 trauma hospital and later a hospice chaplain, accompanying thousands of people at the end of life. Today, Catherine runs a private practice counseling attorneys, doctors, business executives, and people searching for more. She helps people open into their true nature and to live from their heart and soul. Lovely journey you've gone through, Catherine. So take us through this amazing journey from a corporate job to then becoming a chaplain and to what you are doing today.
Great to meet you. Thank you for having me on your show today. Well, I would start with be careful what you pray for, where your path's going to lead you. I started out in the corporate world. My family, 5 older siblings, my father, who's now gone, been gone for many years, but consummate entrepreneur. So in our family, the path was the business world. So even though at the age of, I was 10, turning 11, I dealt with a very grave cancer diagnosis, went through really hardcore treatment, and my life turns upside down as a very young person, 11, 12-year-old. And I grew up so fast. And my story really started then, and I can share more about that. But I followed the corporate path because that was the family path. And from the experience going through having a rare childhood cancer, living through that, and then I had a near-death experience in my 30s, it was a turning point where like, who am I? What do I want to do with my life? And I stepped off the corporate ladder, which was huge, to listen, where am I being called? And I ended up landing on studying theology. So in my family, they were in shock that I was going to study theology, but that's where my path started, and it's been incredible ever since. I mean, listening deeply and following my passion and where my heart was leading me.
Yeah. So was this trigger, this near-death experience that moved you to this very different direction?
Yeah, I would say it had been building. I was in advertising the last 10 years. I was with Time magazine, Time Warner, and the last couple years of my 10 years with them, I started feeling this restlessness, even though I was making a lot of money. It was glamorous. I had the #1 print job here in the Twin Cities, but my heart was like, oh, I don't think this is it. I had just actually turned down a management position. They gave me what I thought I wanted, to be the manager of the Midwest region. And the words yes just couldn't come out of my mouth. And I said no. And then it was, yes, that near-death experience, whitewater rafting in Costa Rica, where I found like, that's it. This is not what I want to keep doing. And I needed to create space to listen. So yes, that was a huge turning point. Within a month after that experience, I gave my notice and left Time magazine.
Now you have accompanied thousands of people at the end of their life. What is the essential message you would tell people in confronting mortality? Because it's so much a topic that we tend to black out. We don't want to talk about mortality. We don't want to talk about death, but it's part of life.
I would say 2 messages. Number 1, take this with a grain of salt, but death is not an end. I was with so many people as they died to witness, see, sense, feel their spirit leave their body. In fact, I write about in my new book, Everyday Awakening, how quite a number of people after they died, within days to a week, would come back and see me in the middle of the night to thank me and show up. And it was just another confirmation that there's so many more layers beyond what we can see, so many layers of reality. So First of all, I'd say death is not an end. I think our spirit, our soul is eternal and never dies and transforms when we die, goes on. And then also I would share, I learned being with so many people at end of life. I witnessed people that the days before they died, coming into their heart, realizing that nothing else mattered but love, and love just permeating a room, their bedroom, and a sense of preciousness of life that they felt into, and just it was almost magical wonderment. And then they would die. And my message again with my book Everyday Awakening is you don't have to wait until end of life, or you don't have to wait till you're in a crisis or upheaval. Every one of us can choose right now to feel into this love, this vibrant aliveness, our sense of our deep essence and soul today.
What is the deepest regret people have if they're close to death?
That's a good question. You know, I would say it would come to me in the moment around forgiveness, like if they didn't forgive someone or wronged someone. But I also found majority of people I was with at end of life, and this is in hospice. It's different when you're at a trauma hospital, when death happens very fast and unexpected. But in hospice, most people died at peace. There was a peace. They had worked through on some level forgiveness, letting go of any angst, sending and accepting forgiveness. So there was truly, I would say, a pretty much of a norm, a deeper peace with people as they passed in a hospice setting.
I want to come back to this topic of peace because I experienced my own mother dying from cancer at the age of 48. I was at her side when she died, and I was also at the side of my mother-in-law when she died. And I would say it was very much a magical experience where you sense that soul is still in their room for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Was my experience at least. And then after some minutes, you look at that body and you say, well, it's no longer the person. The person is somewhere else. And what I experienced with my father, who died 3 years ago, was that he spoke to me in a dream about a year after his passing. So also amazing. As you said, different dimension.
Yep. Yep. No, I had many of those experiences professionally, but also personally. I'll just share one quick example. My mother-in-law died at 65 of pancreatic cancer, and this was almost 20 years ago this summer. And just to see, witness, walk with her in this transformation of, she was very much, I would say, defined externally, money, objects, things, like many of us can be. But all that dropped away, and there just became this inner glow within her, this sense of deep love within her. And even a couple days before she died, she sat myself and my husband down and just said, I'm ready. I'm not afraid. And I'm going to teach you about death and dying. And at the time, this is before I became a chaplain. This was actually, she was a huge impetus for me choosing this path also. But I remember thinking, wow. But when I was with her when she died, I could feel her spirit leave her body. I stayed in the room after everyone left the room, and I could feel her hovering around the room. Yeah. So, and I've had that with I've lost 5 family members. I've felt that with a number of my family members who have died.
Yeah, yeah, but my feeling is that people go to some place really good, uh, but it's very hard for family members, loved ones, to let go, and they have this sadness and having lost a loved one. What do you tell people who can't deal with the loss of a loved one?
And yes, when you lose a loved one, it's really hard. It's tough. It's hard. And life is messy, and none of us escape the hardness and messiness of life. What I have learned personally, professionally, is the pathway to healing is feeling your feelings. And I do a lot of speaking. I do speaking on grief and how you walk through grief. And even if it's a death that's not that long ago, the grief is quite heavy. I recommend, can you feel it a little bit? Let a little out, be present with it, but then you can take a break and go see a friend, go to the grocery store, do something, you go for a walk, but then come back. And the more over time that we can tune into, breathe into, name, when we can name what we're feeling, it calms our nervous system. Research tells us. And, when we can feel the feeling and let it move through us a little bit, it won't have the grip on you. It starts to dissipate. And that truly, even though it's like in our society, I think the message almost the opposite. If you're having a hard time, distract yourself, watch a Netflix show, do all that. But I mean, the pathway to healing is you really, truly, over time, need to feel the feelings, to let them run through you. So there's space for love and joy and peace to come into your being.
Yeah. Now, obviously, individuals have different lengths of time that they go through this grieving process. Do you have a sort of timeline that you say, okay, by that time people should have transmuted that grieving process?
It relates to what you just said. Yes, there's what's called anticipatory grief, where for example, potentially a loved one, there's no cure, they're going to die. You start grieving before they even die. So there's different grief. Yes. And I would say when you lose a loved one, I think the first year can be really hard because it's the first holidays, the first all birthdays, all this where they're not with you. That said, I also think the second year, it's like the reality of really what happens sets in. Um,
Mm,
the first couple of years can be hard, and then hopefully the grief starts to lessen a bit. One healer many years ago, when I was working with this guy named Michael, who I think so the world of, we were talking about grief and that it's circular. It's circular. Like time, I do think time can really be a healer, and the grief lessens and lessens. And yet, as I say that, you could have an experience like, so for example, I had lost a brother. My brother Jim died of a brain tumor when he was 45, and he's been gone, gosh, 12, 13 years now. And the grief is a lot less. But yet, a month ago, out of nowhere, I was hearing one of his favorite songs on the radio, and the grief felt like as if he had passed that day. So, I just think take a day at a time and good self-care. And I do think over time the grief lessens. And when there's moments, reminders, things happen where the grief is more intense, then just breathe into it and breathe out. And, we continue to walk forward.
mm. That's interesting because a friend of mine just a few weeks ago lost his wife from cancer, and he told me that he would see things belonging to her that would trigger immense grief just by looking at an object she wore or a food she ate.
And I do think, yes, feeling feelings, but I also think every single one of us, everyone listening to this right now, we all have gifts to experience beyond our physical body. If we come into the moment, have some stillness, some silence. And what I'm talking about are words like clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentient. Maybe some of us can see or hear or sense other dimensions. But again, it means being still in the moment, the present moment, being here now, feeling into it. My brother, as I mentioned to you, a week after he died, he actually came to me in a dream. And he's like, you won't believe all what you go through when you die. And he looked amazing and healthy. And then about 5 years ago, I remember in the kitchen seeing him, his spirit like boom, appeared right in front of me. I was like, wow. So
Now, talking about that reality, what you know of people who have passed into the other dimension, what do we know about life after death?
well, here's about as far as I'll go. And that is, again, as I said earlier, at the beginning of our conversation, I 100% know, I feel deeply from all the many people and spirits I've seen that death is not an end. Our spirit, our soul is eternal, our essence, whatever word you want to use, but it goes on. Now, what happens after that is a bit subjective. I mean, I am an ordained minister, but I'm really liberal. And Do I believe in a heaven and hell? Actually, you know what? I don't. I think heaviness, there is heaviness, there can be darkness. I think when we die, this is my deep sense that we go through a little bit of a review, like what did I do through my life? What was my life? And maybe have flashbacks and kind of seeing our life. And I do get a strong feeling that we do connect with loved ones who've passed on, or animals, or I'm a huge dog lover. I can't wait to see my dogs who've died. But that's about as far as I'll go. But I find great comfort in feeling into that, a deep knowing that death is not an end.
Now, some religions like Buddhism believe in reincarnation. Is there some truth to that?
Well, I think that's a subjective call. And I would say, for what it's worth, I very much believe in reincarnation. It just, you live life and you meet so many people on your path. And it's so curious how sometimes you meet someone and you just feel like, gosh, I know you, or someone you meet who feels like so young. And I don't know. So I just feeling the feeling tone, the energy of it
Mm.
really resonates with me. But I do think it's a, personal decision. But for me, I 100% believe in reincarnation.
What are the essential practices in opening your heart and soul?
Well, I write in my book, Everyday Awakening, 5 practices for feeling deeply, coming into your heart and soul. It starts with number 1, the first practice I write about in my book: come back to the present moment. We know that when we're in our thinking mind, we're in the future, we're in the past, we're not even here. We know that we can watch what we think, what we feel. We're that essence, that witnessing presence behind our thoughts and our feelings. So building, and I share this with people, can you start by building your awareness muscle? Just where are you? I share that with people. Can you tune in? Are you in your mind? Are you in your body? When you're body, you're in the present moment. So that is really a practice that every one of us can practice more moments, cultivating, experiencing more moments of presence. And when you can come into the present moment and just be here now, love Ram Dass, famous saying, be here now, be here in the moment, you can feel into whatever that is. The second practice is connect with something greater. And when I say something greater, after working with thousands of people, some people might call it God, some people might call it energy or true nature or Allah or higher power. I believe it's all okay. I think language is limiting. For me, I name in my book God, higher power, universe, but it's like the more you've been on this path, it's like there aren't even almost words. So connecting with what that feeling inside of you is. Then I talk about third practice, grow your trust. How do you trust? How do you listen to how you're being guided? And then coming into your heart, embodying love. And every one of us, you can grow even through some really difficult family of origin experiences, and I've had my share. You can grow love. I think our essence, our soul is love. I think the reason we're here on this earth is to learn to love. And it starts with loving ourselves. We can only meet another truly and love another to the extent that we love ourselves. And we can grow that self-love. And so in my book, I have practices how to do it. Yep.
Mm. Yeah, which is a very wise biblical saying, love yourself as thy neighbor. So much truth in that. And I think certainly that you can't emanate or give love if you don't love yourself.
Yeah, I really do believe, to the extent that we can love ourselves, feel love in our being, accept ourselves, is to the extent that we can love and accept another.
Tell us a bit more about Everyday Awakening. You mentioned these 5 concepts. What is the key message you're trying to bring across?
And by the way, the fifth practice is hold openness. How do you go with the flow of life when life
Mm.
can be, for all of us, challenging? All of us on certain levels, life can be really challenging, and loss and grief and ups and downs. I would say the biggest takeaway for my book is how can you live a really vibrant, full life? And in that it's a choice. It's a choice. It's a practice. Some people come to realizing the preciousness of life and that sense of deep love and aliveness of their soul by some traumatic experience. And I would say I fit in that category, suddenly facing my death as an 11-year-old, having a near-death experience. But that's not as common. I think other people come to it by in their career, their job, their life, they start to feel, if they can feel into a gnawing, an emptiness, a loneliness, something's missing. They're wanting something more. That's another way people come at it. And also practicing prayer, meditation, body movements. There's so many different ways to create some stillness, to feel into, to listen into who am I and where am I being called in life. But my message is all of us, everyday life gives us a lot of examples and a lot of opportunities to feel into the preciousness of our essence, our soul, to grow love, to grow into that oneness of how we're all connected. But it's also a conscious choice and a practice every day. How are you choosing to live?
So a lot of our people out there are numbing these feelings with addictions, for instance, not wanting to feel those whispers from the soul for some other reason. What would you tell people who have no experience with the spiritual, and but still feel a need that there is something out there, they want to start somewhere? Where do they start?
I would say, can you start by just day to day having some moments of mindfulness, of presence, just taking a break. Our minds can run our lives all day long. And I would invite you, is your mind running you, or are you running your mind? Can you just have 1 minute to 5 minutes a day where you have some, if it's your breath, if it's right now as I'm talking, feeling the energy in your hands, your fingers. When you start to feel your body, your thinking mind stops. You can't do both. So just some moments of presence to just breathe and be and see how that feels. I give a number of examples in my book. I'll just share a couple more quick ones. Putting your hands over your heart area. I've been doing this a lot of my life, where you feel the warmth of your hands and it brings you into your body. And just
Yeah.
breathe and just
Mhm.
feel, ask, may I be at peace, or peace come into my body, and just breathe. And one more example, this is something I've done for 20 years, so helpful. Asking 2 questions at the end of the day. What today was life-giving? What filled me up with some life, some joy, lightness? And what depleted me today? What took life away? Just that little simple exercise of asking 2 questions. And I promise you, if you did it every day for a week or two, you'll start to see and sense what's really going on in your life, and what are you choosing, and what do you want to choose, and what do you want with your life?
Great advice, and so important, because haven't we been given the power of choice?
I would agree. And the fact that we're alive. I mean, just really understanding the preciousness of life is amazing. And I would guess just about everyone hearing this right now has had a moment of awe or wonder, a moment. Maybe they're outside and the sun's setting over the hills or over a lake, and the hues are just beautiful. And all of a sudden, for a moment, time stops, life stops, and it's just kind of magical. This is the kind of thing I'm talking about, creating more moments of awe and wonder and feeling that preciousness of life around you, within you. It's there.
Some really great advice you've given all of us out there. How can people connect with you, Catherine?
So my book, Everyday Awakening, it is in the United States, it's on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, Walmart, Target. My website is everydayawakening.com. And I'm on social media under my name, Catherine Duncan, MABCC, Instagram, Facebook. I think it's my company name, Learning to Live. So yeah, I'm all over.
Okay, we'll post those links in the show notes below,
Oh,
so that people know how to get in touch with you. It was really enjoyable talking to you, Catherine, and it's such an important topic in our world today where we tend to not want to hear about these topics of mortality and the preciousness of life, where we are being distracted and pulled into so many different directions and not feeling the essence of our soul. So I want to acknowledge you for your great message and all the best.
A delight to meet you. Thank you so much. The best to you as well.